Okay. Good morning. Zoom looks like Anoma.
Okay, Bhante, ready?
Okay, you are ready? Okay, let us begin metta meditation first. May all beings be happy and secure. May
May
all
all
beings
beings have
have happy
happy
minds,
minds,
whatever
whatever
living
living
beings
beings
there
they
may
may
be,
be,
without
without
exception,
exception,
weak
weak
or
or strong,
strong, long,
long,
large,
large,
medium,
medium,
short,
short,
subtle
subtle
or
or
gross,
gross,
visible
visible
or
or invisible,
invisible, living
living
near
near
or
or far,
far, born
born
or
or coming
coming to
to
birth.
birth.
May
May
all
all
beings
beings
have
have
happy
happy
minds.
minds.
Let
Let
no
no
one
one
deceive
deceive
another,
another,
nor
nor
despise
despise anyone
anyone anywhere.
anywhere.
Neither
Neither
from
from
anger
anger
nor
nor
ill
ill
will
will
should
should
anyone
anyone wish
wish
harm
harm to
to
another.
another.
As
As
a
a
mother
mother
would
would
risk
risk
her
her
own
own
life
life to
to
protect
protect her
her
only
only
child,
child,
even
even
so
so
towards
towards
all
all
living
living
beings,
beings,
one
one should
should cultivate
cultivate
a
a
boundless
boundless
heart.
heart.
One
One
should
should cultivate
cultivate for
for
all
all
the
the world
world a
a
heart
heart
of
of
boundless
boundless
loving
loving
friendliness,
friendliness,
above,
above,
below,
below, and
and
all
all
around,
around,
unobstructed,
unobstructed, without
without
hate or
hatred or
resentment,
resentment, whether
whether standing,
standing,
walking,
walking,
sitting,
sitting,
lying
lying
down,
down, or
or when
whenever
awake.
awake.
One
One
should
should
develop
develop
this
this
mindfulness.
mindfulness.
This
This
is
is
called
called
divinely
divinely
dwelling
dwelling
here,
here,
not
not
falling
falling
into
into
erroneous
erroneous
views,
views,
but
but
virtuous
virtuous
and
and
endowed
endowed with
with
vision,
vision, removing
removing desire
desires
for
for
sensual
sensual pleasures.
pleasures.
One
One
comes
comes
never
never
again
again
to
to
birth
birth
in
in
the
the
womb.
womb.
With this metta thought, let us begin our practice. This is a very wonderful, very wholesome, universal, loving friendliness that we cultivate without any condition. The cultivation of metta is unconditional, but metta itself is not unconditional. That means metta we create in our mind, whatever mentally created. Buddha says, Yang Kinchi, Chetitang Sabbantang Nirodhamma. Whatever we mentally create is subject to change. So metta itself is not permanent. But we can practice metta without any boundaries and limit. With this, we begin. Breathe in, noticing, inhaling, touching the rims of your nostrils, and expanding the chest area and expanding a lower abdominal area. As you breathe out, notice contracting lower abdominal area, chest area, and breath leaving the rims of your nostrils. As we breathe in and out this way, we can notice a brief pause between inhaling and exhaling. We notice them without using words, concepts, ideas, just pay total, undivided, mindful attention just to feel the touch of breath. And then we feel the breath. There is no other way to know the breath but through the feeling and the touch and the feeling. And then as we perceive the feeling, we have perception that changes as the breath and the feeling changes. Then we have attention or thought, intention to pay attention that also changes. Consciousness along with all these arise, that too change. Thus our breath, feeling, attention, consciousness All these feel change as we breathe in. They change as we breathe out. So what we felt, perceived, thought, and be conscious when we breathe in is no longer there when we breathe out. They change as we breathe out. Then when we see this reality, we know that there is nothing that we can hold on to. They all flow, change, move, impermanent. And then that is where our letting go of mind arises. We know that things don't stay and let them go. We cannot hold on to them and we let them go. And then that is what is called greed. Holding on to something is called greed or desire. When that fades away, then arises, we see the resentment or anger fading away because there is nothing to hold on to. Then arises a very deep feeling of metta, loving friendliness. Then arises compassion, knowing that there are all so many suffering beings. Knowing and seeing suffering beings melts our heart and compassion arises there. When these three things happen, restlessness and worry fades away, we become more active in positive way, and then our sleepiness and drowsiness fade away, and seeing all this, our doubt fades away. When we see all this, we have confidence in us, confidence in the practice, confidence in the Buddha's teaching. And with this, our body becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. The breath becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. The mind becomes calm, relaxed and peaceful. With that state of mind, joy arises, happiness arises, and concentration arises. When we gain deep concentration, we can use this to reflect back on what is happening in us while we are in concentrated state. Every tiny minute changes we notice. The subtlest changes we notice. And that subtlest changes is the thing that is happening all the time to our body, feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness. This is called seeing things as they really are. With this, we continue the practice, seeing these things as they really are. Dukkha patta ca niddukkha, bhaya patta ca nibbhaya, soka patta ca nissoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all beings be. With this, we end the silent meditation practice for this morning. And we want to continue the talk on dependent origination. We were talking on mentality, materiality, and consciousness. I want to continue this talk. When we have mentality, materiality, there is contact. That's what Buddha said. As I mentioned in the standard dependent origination teaching, contact arises after sixfold basis. And salayatana paccaya passo, depending on six sense bases, contact arises. And contact does not arise just because of this, having these six senses without consciousness. Contact is only those beings who have consciousness can have. And inanimate objects, we although attribute contact to them, they don't have the kind of contact that we human beings or living beings with consciousness have. When the living beings have consciousness, contact, their contact immediately arise from the combination of senses, sensory object, and consciousness. Since inanimate objects don't have consciousness, although they may touch one another, there is no the kind of contact that we have, because they don't have consciousness. Since they don't have consciousness, there is no feeling. Anyway, that is how we must understand the connection between consciousness and contact. We yesterday explained two types of contact: impingement contact and designation contact. Impingement is like when you pinch with two fingers and you pinch something, you feel the pinch. Impingement is very much like that. The mind can feel the hardness, softness, heat, the oscillation, and water, all elements mind can feel because they have the signs, characters, indications, and so on. There are some characteristics. Since they have these characteristics, mind can know them as designation contact. Since they have these characteristics, mind can have the impingement of this. So this is the contact. So in this contact, we use our practice. The mindful meditators must understand the importance of contact. It is so important. Probably you may remember at the end of the Mahasatipatthana Sutta, Buddha said if somebody practiced Satipatthana Sutta mind, four foundations of mindfulness, exactly the way he described there, one can attain full enlightenment in this life within 7 years, and he reduced it to 7 days. And in Bodhiraj Kumar Sutta, Buddha reduced it to half a day. If we have additional qualification such as faith, determination, wisdom, honesty and good health, when we have these 5 additional qualities, then one can, Buddha said he would give instructions in the morning and the person will attain full enlightenment in the evening. With these 5 qualities, if he continues to practice mindfulness and Buddha gave instructions in the evening, next morning he will attain enlightenment. That means he reduced to half a day. In Maranasati discourse in Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha reduced half a day to 1 inhaling and 1 exhaling, or 1 morsel of food, chewing and swallowing. Such a short period of time, one can attain full enlightenment. All this depends on contact. Yesterday also I said all the 62 wrong views, ditti, Buddha refuted using contact. All of them depends on contact. And he gave, in addition to the Brahmajala, he gave a simile of putting a net, very finely knitted net, into a little pond of water. Pond has a little water, but there are fish. So a fisherman or his apprentice would put a net into the water, and every living creature there, little fish, big fish, everyone will be caught in the net. And that fish, when tries to escape through very tiny little holes, as soon as their face touched the net, they withdraw. That means the touch is so important. Touch is important to save life and to survive. Therefore, in this teaching, touch or contact is extremely important. And Buddha mentioned in if somebody understands contact, therefore, he would be able to attain full enlightenment in this life. If any fetter remains, at least last fetter remains undestroyed, that person attains 3rd level of enlightenment, anagami state. Now, the contact is compared to a skinned cow. There are 4 what you call food, the material food. Then this is called kabalinkara. The second is pasahara. Pasa means contact. Third is vijnana consciousness. fourth is Mano Sanchetana, fourth is the thought, Mano Sanchetana. Now here, Buddha gave a simile to make it clear how important the understanding of contact is. He compared a skinned cow. It is very interesting. When skin, a little part, not the whole skin, but if say certain portion of the cow's skin is removed, and then if the cow stands under a tree, the insects on the tree, in the tree, will uh, get into the cow and bite. So very painful. If the cow goes to water, and the water creatures will come and attack, and then it is very painful. Even the touching water is very painful. If the cow stands in the open air, all other insects and air, the wind that blows to the wound, the flesh without skin, has pain. And wherever the cow moves, even very fine silk cloth, it may be very velvet cloth, may be very soft to our when it touches our skin, we feel the softness. But even that silk cloth is rubbed against that part where there is no skin, cow feels pain. Now, this means when the little part of the skin is removed, which is very, very thin, removes, we have a lot of pain there. So assume that the skin, therefore, is a band-aid of a wound. The whole flesh is a wound. It is covered with this very tiny little skin to cover that wound. So the entire body is a wound, and the skin is the band-aid. So Buddha said the contact is so important, just like the skin that covers the flesh of the body. So it is very beautiful simile. We will never forget that simile. So the skin is the cover of a wound, the wound. And without consciousness, it cannot happen. And therefore, consciousness also is extremely important. And in addition, there is a discourse in Majjhima Nikaya, the last discourse called Indriya Bhavana Sutta. Indriya means 6 senses. Indriya also, there is another Indriya which is called Indriya, spiritual Indriyas. They are called Saddha, Sati, Virya, Samadhi, Panya. They also are called Indriya. Indriya means, the word Indra. Indra is deity, king of all the deities, called Indra. And we have Indriya, meaning they are chief of that particular function. For instance, eye is the chief of seeing, nothing else I can do. Ear cannot do what the eye does. Similarly, I cannot do what the ear does. Therefore, ear is specialized for that function. Eye and ear cannot do what the nose does. Nose is specialized in that area. Tongue, nothing in other senses can taste as tongue taste. So tongue is specialized Similarly, the skin of the body is chief. Then it is called Indriya, body, Kaya Indriya. And above all, there is another Indriya called the mind. Nothing can do without the mental Indriya. We can live without eyes, with being deaf and no smell, and even if we don't have a particular taste, we may force food into our body and so forth, but without the mind, we cannot live. Therefore, these are called Indriyas. Now, this discourse is called Indriya Bhavana Sutra, meditation using these 6 senses. And one must cultivate mindfulness in such a way to use the contact that comes through these 6 senses. Each of them specializes in each one its own area. And when we remain mindful, when we have eye contact, as soon as the contact arises, what happens? Feeling arises, perception arises, greed arises, whole gamut of things arise along with one contact with the eye. See how many millions of things we see. From each of this visual contact, so many other things happen. Our anger can arise, greed can arise, lust can arise, hate can arise, and even metta can arise, compassion can arise. So many things can arise from one simple contact. If we are mindful, right there, we see how to use the eye contact as a part of our mindfulness meditation. For instance, when we see an object, as soon as contact arises, we immediately notice. We have to be mindful to notice it. We notice either desire arises, craving, lobha, or dosa, anger arises, or moha, confusion can arise. Now, if we remain mindful, as soon as contact arises, eye contact arises, we remain so mindful that we see this contact is impermanent. This contact is impermanent. Really, it is impermanent. Next time, feeling arises. Next perception. All these mental factors, mentality factors arise. And then if we remain mindful, we can immediately stop as soon as we see, as soon as we have contact, immediately we become, this is impermanent, that is impermanent, that is impermanent. Then there is no room for greed to arise, no room for hatred to arise, no room to get confusion, to get confused. So, and also, when contact arises, and pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling arises with their underlying tendency of greed, hatred, and when neutral feeling arises, confusion can arise. When we see confusion mindfully, confusion called moha, moha. When we look at moha, confusion, with mindfulness, even the moha is not something permanent. As soon as that it is impermanent, then moha disappears. As soon as we mindfully see the confusion impermanent, it disappears. What arises? Wisdom arises. When confusion, the opposite of greed is generosity. Opposite of hatred is metta. Opposite of confusion is wisdom. You can see when we remain mindful, how wisdom arises. So Buddha said in the Bhavana Sutta, the mindful meditator immediately becomes aware of all these greed, hatred, delusion, non-greed, non-hatred, and non-delusion mean wisdom. Seeing these things, that person immediately becomes mindful of the contact so quickly, like blinking your eyes. How long you take to blink your eyes? You blink as very quickly. That means your mindfulness is so sharp, immediately you become aware of it. This is because of the contact. That is why in Anguttara Nikaya, Buddha said, Phassa samudaya sabhya dhamma. Phassa samudaya. Phassa means contact. Samudaya means arising. You remember the word samudaya used in another place? That is dukkha samudaya. Dukkha samudaya. Dukkha samudaya means arising of dukkha, suffering. Similarly, all the dhammas, Buddha said, arise from contact. Phassa samudaya, like dukkha samudaya. Phassa samudaya sabhya dhamma. Phassa samudaya, from the contact arises all the dhammas, wholesome, unwholesome, and neutral. Why is that? In the phassa there is a consciousness. In the contact there is a consciousness. There is attention. There is awareness. And therefore, as soon as the contact arises, the whole series of things arise from the contact. And then he gave another simile for the ear contact. Sota samphassa. The eye contact is called chakku samphassa. Ear contact is called sota samphassa. Samphassa. Sota samphassa, he gave a simile like when you hear a sound, the same thing happened when you hear the sound. What same thing that happens to you when you see, when you have eye contact. Similar things happen when you have ear contact. And then the person is mindful. The mindful person notices the ear contact and become aware of the fact that it brings pleasantness, unpleasant, and neutral. When the underlying tendency of pleasantness is greed, underlying tendency of hatred, unpleasantness is hatred, underlying tendency of confusion, neutral feeling is confusion. So he knows this very quickly and immediately know the opposite of greed, non-greed, opposite of hatred, loving friendliness, opposite of neutral feeling is confusion. The opposite of consciousness is the underlying tendency of neutral feeling is confusion. The opposite of confusion is wisdom. So he arouses wisdom through the hearing of a sound. starting from the contact. And all this began from the contact. And therefore, Phasa Samudaya Sabya Dhamma. And then immediately become aware of the contact and does not and knows that contact is impermanent and does not let all other series of things arise in the mind, and his mindfulness of the contact through the ear is compared to another very beautiful simile. To illustrate, he gave another simile. That simile is snapping. Snapping your fingers. How long do you take to snap the fingers? To make a finger snap? Very quick. What do you have to do? Bring two things together. And you hear the sound. And bringing these two together with consciousness, and you made the sound, and sound disappears very quickly. As soon as you snap, disappears. That at that speed, the sound is changing. Friends, sound is not one single solid object. Sound waves, sound waves, sound waves, long waves, short waves, and so forth. I don't know the science of that, but I know sound is waves. And these waves change. They must change in order to continue the sound. But it can we can be mindful how quickly they change, just like the sound of finger snap change. Then the smell. When we smell, when there is an odor, we know there are some molecules of something, a flower, food, or any dirt or something. There are molecules. I think so. Those microbiologists or particle physicists and chemists and all those who have studied these things might know better and perhaps educate me for using correct terms. But I know in my simple awareness that there are molecules in this order. Anything, any order. Even this COVID virus, if you go to toilet and after defecating, there is a order. From that, through that order, in that order, there are molecules. And from those molecules, you can get COVID virus. So, that quickly it happens. So, when it happens because of the contact, Ghana sampasa. Ghana means nose. Sampasa contact. When the nose contact the order, we immediately become mindful, this is impermanent. And we don't let other things, either greed, hatred, or delusion, arise. So, I think there are three more similes. My time is running out, but I want to mention these similes before I end this part of the contact. And the third is, fourth is tongue. Tongue. As soon as you smell food, your mouth begins to water. You like the food, or that happens. And that also through the smell of food, some molecules go through our nose, and then our taste buds become active, and the salivary glands become active. They all are connected with the nerves. And then salivary glands produce secrete saliva, and mouth will be full of saliva. So this happens through the contact. So the mindful person sees this happening, then he immediately check, and then he see this is impermanent. This smell of food is impermanent. It is impermanent. It disappears. And that Buddha gave a simile to make it clear to us, for us to understand. The simile of putting the drop of water onto a lotus leaf. A lotus leaf have a very microscopic, what do you call,
Waterproof?
eh?
Waterproof?
Waterproof particles.
Ah.
Waterproof particles like oil. I think they have a
Membrane.
membrane, uh, some microbiologists can tell microscopic membrane on the lotus. Therefore, lotus does not hold water. It rolls down. You know, rolling down the drop of water is a beautiful simile, because when we smell something, that also goes through the nose. That goes through the nose. Just like the smell goes through the nose, or the and secrete saliva and so forth, water also rolls down. But from the very moment the drop of water fell into the lotus flower, it starts rolling down. Similarly, as soon as the taste bud began to activate, the mindful meditator knows that it is impermanent, and he does not let greed, hatred, and delusion arise. And the body, when something, as I mentioned, something touches the skin, contact, then we know at that time the mindful person does not let greed, hatred, delusion arise through the skin touch. And Buddha used a simile to illustrate that, to make it clear to us. That simile is like stretching and flexing your hand. A strong person can stretch and flex, right? Stretch and flex the hand very quickly. Similarly, you now know that because you are mindful. The last is even more important. The mind. As soon as something touches the mind, mindful person knows that is a touch. A greed, hatred, or delusion can arise. Therefore, the person immediately become mindful of it and let it go. The simile is a wonderful simile. Just like you have a pan put on the fire, stove, and it was heating the whole day, very hot, very hot. And you take few drops of water and put into that. As soon as you put the drop of water, it evaporates very quickly. Evaporate. Similarly, when you are mindful, when you are mindful, as soon as uh, any mental image, mindful, the mind objects are called Dhamma. Mind objects are all called Dhamma. There can be anything that have come through the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body into the mind. They become Dhamma, and we remember them. Or we have an idea, or we have an imagination. As soon as these arise, greed can arise, hatred can arise, delusion can arise. Not, the positive thing does not arise first. Negative thing, because this is how we have conditioned ourselves in through samsara. If positive things have developed through samsara, we won't be here. We would attain enlightenment. Since negative things have been things we have cultivated, negative things, and those are the first things that arise in the mind. So when greed, hatred and delusion arise any time when we remember something or think something, we become mindful very quickly and let it go, just like that hot pan evaporates, hot water evaporates from the hot pan. These are beautiful similes. This is regarding contact. I will continue this talk. Today I took little longer time. I hope you don't mind. This is Dhamma. This is Dhamma. This is the benefit that COVID gave us because of virus. We all have a chance to discuss Dhamma, learn Dhamma. Friends, with this I want to end my talk. Thank you very much for coming and listening to this talk and participating in meditation. May all those who are suffering be free from suffering, those who have fear be free from fear, and those who are in hospitals and as patients uh, recover very quickly and return to their normal health very quickly. There are thousands of people, doctors, nurses, and so forth, who are trying out of full compassion to support these people, cure these people. May they all be well, healthy, well, and happy. And those others who support them in many ways be healthy and happy. And also, finally, those who make decision, may they have wisdom, courage, understanding, above all, compassion for all these suffering beings to make right decision. And thank you very much for listening, and see you tomorrow morning.